This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia. Is there anyone else present that plans to record?
Just one portion of it, not the entire meeting.
Okay. Do you need a name or anything?
No, they're just gonna tape
Okay,
it.
that's fine.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
not
so
the,
that's fine.
Thank you.
Great.
not the press.
Before we begin, I'd just like to quickly introduce the board in the new positions that were voted on in our last meeting. So my name is Dennis King, and I'll be serving as the chair for the next year. Al Thomas will be serving as the vice chair, and our newest member, Donna Newcomb, will be serving as the secretary. Our other members are Barbara Scar and John Moses. I'd like to welcome Donna, and hopefully speaking for the whole board, I say we look forward to working with you for the next year or two. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Al. Well, we've been helping. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Al for serving as the chairman of the school committee for, the last 3 years, I believe. I have big shoes to fill, literally, if you ever stood next to Al, you know, you have some big shoes to fill, but again, thank you for all that hard work, Al. So the first item on our tonight's agenda is approval of the minutes for our meeting on April 10th. Did everybody have a chance to look them over? Anybody need a couple minutes, or?
When the people are ready,
Yeah,
I'll move
everybody
to
good?
approve
I'll entertain a motion. Yep.
the minutes of the regular school committee meeting on April 10th.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second. Any comments or any corrections? Okay. All right, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? 5-0. All right, next we'll open up the meeting for public comment. If you would like to speak to the committee, please come forward and state your name and address for the recording secretary. Please keep in mind that this is your time to offer your opinions or express your concerns to the committee, but we cannot engage in discussion or debate about those issues. So if anybody would like to come forward.
Evelyn Thorin, 18 Pinewood Road. I have a couple of things. One is that tomorrow is Day on the Hill, and Angie Tranto and I are driving in. As usual in the past when we've done this, we've got a space at the State House, and he has also made a schedule to speak with the representatives. I don't know exactly what that is, but I know that the luncheon is at noontime, and then we will meet after lunch, just so that you know, and I also had extended to several of you, if you wanted to drive in with me, that would be fine. I know Al's going to go with me. I didn't know that Donna was going. I know Barbara is working, and I left a message with John, so if anybody else wants to go, I do have room for 3 more people, if you'd let me know. Dennis, in the morning.
Yeah, I think Jay and I are gonna go in the morning.
Okay, I know that some people's schedule needs to be a little bit more flexible maybe than what ours is. So we're going to do that. One of the things that we didn't know if anybody was actually going to attend the MASC events that they were going to have, it's at a separate location. In the past, it has been at the State House. So I requested that Debbie print off what their priorities are from MASC, all their talking points. And so I got that information to her, and I know that there are copies that are there that are actually readable in comparison to what I got on my phone. And again, thank you, Debbie Phillips, very much for printing that out for us. And I did take my couple of copies in case I don't get as far as here tomorrow. So we'll all meet up at some point at the State House, and I look forward to doing that with you. One of the other things is that you're going to address liaisons this evening, and if you would put the Wellness Committee on that list, because it needs a school committee liaison.
So we'll have to add somebody to that.
I was the liaison for quite a number of years from the time it started until I left school committee. And I'm still a member of that, but I don't see school committee people coming, so I just want to emphasize that piece.
Add that on.
And also to make sure that your choice of an MASC liaison is, a strong choice so that they're doing a lot of this work. I don't mind doing it, but because I'm still involved as a life member. And if you need any other information and you need it facilitated, please don't hesitate to let me know. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Strong voice, right?
When does the Wellness Committee meet?
I don't have at the top of my head, I don't have when the next meeting is.
Mornings, nights?
They've been meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or sometime like that over at 3:30 at the high school in the conference room that's right, as you go in where the principal is off to the left.
So if anybody's interested in that, if you're interested or anybody else, just let me know.
Somewhere else, I would go.
Okay, great.
All right,
Thank
thank
you,
you very
thank you.
much.
Would anybody else like to get up and speak?
Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Emily Antle. I am newly elected to the Board of Selectmen, and I have been chosen as the liaison to the school committee. So I wanted to say hello and introduce myself, and I'd love to get the agendas to the meetings from now on. That would be wonderful. So,
All right, well, welcome aboard.
thank you.
Thank you for not having yard signs. I really appreciated that.
I did have them. They just arrived really late.
I thought it was brilliant. Not to do it. I thought it was brilliant.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, would anybody else like to speak?
Hello, I'm Hannah Barker. I live on Newtown Way. I had two areas that I wanted to make a comment on that I see are probably going to be on the agenda tonight. And the first one may be a little out of context, but I don't know what I don't know. So it's regarding the MASC and considering using them as the hosting service. I don't know what issues of ownership of material are involved, of who owns the copyright for this. And I'm a little concerned that I know we have some pretty substantial technological hardware in the district, and I'm concerned why we're not hosting this ourselves. So, again, I can be commenting out of context, but I had some concerns about that before we hop on board and give information away that it might be costly or hard to get back. The other area was, I brought this up a long time ago, and it looks like the procedure for public comment is now coming up for consideration. And again, I don't know what I don't know, but I'm assuming that there's been some policy subcommittee meetings, and that the attachment on the agenda is the proposed change to the public comment, that it would replace, what we've already got. And so I had a couple of thoughts on that. I'm concerned that ought to be considered in the larger context of communication between the school committee and the school district and the community. And, there's been some lumpy spots in the past. And so the way that policy is, how you go about deciding to change that, I think deserves some consideration. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if it makes sense to have public comment on the public comment policy before something gets adopted. And lastly, I noticed in both the existing policy and in the what I would assume is the proposed policy, there seems to be a statement that's italicized in there about what people are allowed to bring up as subject matter, and the manner in which they are allowed to do so. And I'm assuming that the policy on public comment is a subset of a larger policy on how the school committee meetings are run, and I would respectfully suggest that that paragraph needs to go at the beginning of the school committee meetings and should apply to everyone, and not just your guests that come to make comments at the meetings. So it's not just a subset for the policy on public comment, but it should apply to everybody. And that's all the thoughts I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would anybody else like to speak? Okay. All right, so next up, our student representative.
So there's not too many updates this week since we'll be meeting next week, but this Wednesday night is Jazz Night at 7 in the Performing Arts Center. This Friday and Saturday, we're having a concert called Acapocalypse. which is an a cappella concert, and 2 of our CHS a cappella groups will be performing, along with some guest groups. On April 30th, grades will be posted, and on May 7th, AP testing starts.
What was the date on that acapella?
It's this Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday. 7?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Good news?
There is one piece of good news. There was an excellent international luncheon at the high school. It went off like magic. People were dancing apparently in the Learning Commons. I don't know if you had a chance to go up there during your lunches. So that was a great event. And then most of our good news is sitting in the audience right now. So I'm going to start turning it over to the committee.
Anything else?
No.
Okay.
No, if we actually move into new business this evening, we're going to have a continuation of our spotlight on the schools. So our Harrington Elementary School is here tonight to present some of their work that's going on. So I'd like to invite Patty Tobin, the interim principal of Harrington, up. And we know we have some staff and some students in the audience. So however you would like to get everyone assembled, we'll give you a few minutes to do that.
Should I invite them all up?
However you'd
away?
like to do it. Yep.
Okay, come on up, kids. So, good evening, everybody. I want to welcome your new board member.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And I want to say hello to all of you and thank you for the service that you provide to the Chelmsford Public Schools. I think you know that in my career, I've been in a lot of schools and a lot of classrooms, and this is a very fine community to work in. I want to thank you for having the opportunity. I have to say it's one of the greatest staffs I've ever worked with, and the students, well, they just make me happy every day. So thank you very much. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about social emotional competencies in our schools. Oh boy, this is going to challenge my vision. You ready, Tyler? Oh, even better. Okay. So it's been a district initiative in Chelmsford to understand and develop social emotional competencies in our school. And I'm very proud of the staff and students at the Harrington for the work that they have done this year to really grow this initiative. Our PBS, first of all, our PBIS school-based team members, they've really served as coaches this year to work with the staff in professional development. They led all those half-day professional developments. It was for staff, by staff, and they were always just well received. And they focused specifically on direct instruction to the students so that we're teaching the students directly the kinds of behaviors that are expected in our school. Second, we had our school-wide expectation matrix of respect, responsibility, and ready. It's complete. Our students all know what expected behavior looks like in all areas of the school, our classroom, our lunchrooms, the bathrooms, and playground. The adults in our building all notice the students when they demonstrate these expected behaviors. And moving forward, we'll be holding these students a little bit more accountable for their behaviors using our passports in the fall. Okay, and we explored social emotional learning competencies to enhance the kids' really their capacity to integrate these skills, their attitudes and behavior in order to deal effectively with and ethically with the daily tasks inside the classroom. We expect, in a nutshell, we want our students to recognize their strengths and be self-confident. We want them to be empathetic and respectful of others. We want them to be able to identify problems, analyze them, and then offer solutions for solving them themselves. We want them to effectively manage stress, control impulses, and be self-motivating. And finally, establish and work toward personal and academic goals. Fourth, we launched a book study group for teachers and paraprofessionals. This book was called The Behavior Code. It's a practical guide to understanding and teaching the most challenging students. This book is by Jessica Minahan. Jessica presented on your behalf, or on our behalf, but at your summoning at our opening day here at Chelmsford Public Schools. And she did a great presentation, and it lit a fire under 2 teachers that you're going to be meeting tonight, Andrea Imbriaco and Pam McMinimum. These teachers, I can't tell you enough how proud I am of them, and you should be too. They really took this initiative and I'm losing my spot, sorry. They began a book study session, and we hosted it in our staff meetings. So the teachers would read a book, a chapter of the book, and then Pam and Andrea would help facilitate the discussion at the end of our staff meeting. Our staff meeting were all well attended because everyone has to be there, so they were definitely a robust audience. But interesting, our custodian came to every one of these sessions. Okay. Oh, okay. Am I here? Oh, no. Go back one, Andrea, please. Because this part is something that a lot of districts work really hard to do, and we did it at the Harrington. So in November, Pam and Andrea identified an opportunity to do this same program for the paraprofessionals. The paraprofessionals who work in our building often don't have the opportunity to attend all our professional development sessions, yet they're working with some of our most neediest students, or at least the students that need an understanding and encouragement. So they saw that opportunity, and they unpacked the same program for our paraprofessionals throughout the rest of the year. We started doing it on those half days while teachers were in science and PBIS training. Andrea and Pam worked directly with all of the paraprofessionals. And finally, I wanted to share with you our school-based mentoring program for students, led by our new school counselor, Lindsay O'Neill, right here. So I have a group of students, or a whole entourage of friends that I brought with me to talk to you a little bit and explain what are those things look like. So first of all, Pam and Andrea are going to talk to us about the behavior code and why we should have embarked on it. You're up. You want me to do your?
Yeah, you might want to go through this whole thing.
Okay. Lindsay O'Neill is the school-based mentoring. And then we have Adele Tatton. I want to give them away. She's going to be talking to you about the 3 R's. And she's accompanied by one of our school paraprofessionals, Kathy Lashoto, AKA, what do we call her?
Paw Patrol.
Paw Patrol, right. And we have Harry Sapp. There's Harry down here. And he's with Janet Hoffman, his classroom teacher and member of our PBIS committee. He's going to talk to you about the playground and his experience with stopping aggression. We have Tyler Clegg, and he's accompanied here by Lindsay O'Neill, and he's talking about our school-wide initiatives. And then we have the rockin' 4th grade students of Logan Kowalik, Molly Mahoney, and Ava Sack. Where's Ava? Oh, there she is, right there. And they're working with Mrs. Kowalik to tell you about what the superheroes at the Harrington are really like. Okay.
So the only thing I would ask is if you just pull the microphone kind of close to you when you're talking, just so that the people at home can hear. You don't have to speak right into it, but just pull it a little bit closer to you.
Here, I'll move off the camera.
Because if not, we have a great presentation, but the audience at home can't follow along.
How's that? Is that good?
Perfect, perfect.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so Andrea and I had the opportunity, as you just heard, to talk to the entire staff about children, and that's my favorite topic. So I was really excited to be able to just, spend some time with staff. And so we began with the why. Why do we want to talk about social emotional learning? And I think by beginning with why, that helps us wrap around our heads about the direction in which we want to go and the reason why, we're talking about social emotional learning. So to just give you perspective, in 2012, that's when more than 50% of families had technology in their households. So before 2012, I want you all just to be thinking about play and what play looks like. And I have to say, I've been in Chelmsford since 1997, and the way I service children has changed and evolved. And I really just had to sit down and be thinking about, our world and how our world has changed. So I put together some pictures that I borrowed, and I think the pictures will speak for themselves. So just looking at the pictures, be thinking, what it means to you to be out building a fort. So you can be building a fort at home with some blankets and your furniture, or building forts on a video game. Like Minecraft. You could be playing house with just household objects. This is an example of maybe less is more. Or, house, like what we've seen out in stores. Playing ball. This is what I think of when I play ball. Is pretty much just a pickup game. And why is this important in terms of social emotional? This is just kids getting together trying to play ball, and you need to be able to have really great language skills to negotiate, to keep the game going. We don't want kids dropping out because then there's no game, right? So you're going to learn how to negotiate, you're going to learn how to identify problems, you're going to learn how to solve problems to keep the game going. You're going to learn to be empathetic because you want kids to stay in the game and have perspective of what other kids are thinking. Playing ball, we have a lot of organized sports in 2018s where the adults are the brains for the children, not all the children, but the adults are organizing the play, they're helping solve problems instead of letting the kids do that on their own. Being bored, it's okay to be bored. Right, when we have boring moments, we have to work through it. It's okay, it's healthy to be bored because when we're sitting, we're creating, we're using our imagination, we're learning how to wait. This might be being bored in the year 2018. Watching TV, as a family, choosing what show you want to watch. We all have to decide on a show, we all have to be quiet even if it's not the show you want to watch because you know that your show is coming up later, so you want to be quiet for now so that other people can be quiet for you when your show is on. And we also have to wait for our show for a week, right? Watching TV now, we have playing a game, a board game, you're interacting, problem solving again, thinking about kids, waiting for your turn, being patient. Playing a game, we have a lot of stimulation every 5 seconds. Shopping may sound like a boring moment, but actually, in terms of language and communication, is so important. You go shopping as a family, you're building vocabulary, you're learning how to wait in line, you're learning what not to touch, so you're waiting patience, you're learning patience again. Shopping is really important. Shopping. When I just go out shopping, I see not every child, but maybe, one here and there, in a stroller, in front of a device, and what they're missing out on is learning how to observe people. They're actually learning nonverbal communication skills at this point in age. 0 through 3, our brains are mapping and learning all of this, and if we're putting devices in front of children for all of this time, for a very long period of time, they're going to miss out on how to interpret facial expressions, read people's nonverbal communication. And 60% of communication is nonverbal. It's a really important skill that children have when they come to kindergarten. So they need to be able to read each other and predict each other's next move. Taking a road trip, following a group plan, just coming up with simple card games, looking for exits, figuring out where you're going, a really important skill. Taking a road trip, we're kind of plugged in these days, not really paying attention to where we are and who we're with. Going for a walk, I think this speaks for itself. And going for a walk, and not only, I've talked a lot about communication, but we have to think about the sensory experience that children need to have. There's a reason why children don't walk until they're 12 months old. They need to be bounced. They're getting a sensory experience. We're helping their brain develop through movement. If we're vacuuming with our babies and holding them, they're hearing the sounds, they're moving forward, they're moving backwards, they're getting used to sounds around them, they're getting used to being kind of touched unexpectedly and being bumped. All of this is really important. Having a family dinner, building conversation, and having a family dinner. I'm not against technology. I feel like there's a place we need to learn how to balance living with technology.
So when children enter our building every day, we need to really consider where are they in their social emotional journey. They all come with different strengths and different challenges, And I truly believe that children would if they could. They would behave if they could behave. So what are their lagging skills? What can we do to support them in this journey? It's something, social emotional learning is something that we hear more and more about right now. So in the way in which 2018 existence is, children are coming in with different sensory experiences. Patience versus instant gratification. Learning takes a long time. It takes a lot of patience. We don't get our answers or our responses really quickly. It takes time. Executive functioning. Executive functioning has to do with like your organization, planning, those types of skills. Versus impulse control. We want things right away. When you're playing those video games, you're getting your response right away. If I have to think about what is this person's name or what do they do, I'm just going to take out my phone and find it. I'm not really going to use that brain power to think about that answer. Language interactions versus behaviors. When you're playing outside, when you're interacting with your family, you're developing your language skills. You're developing those skills to behave. Those social norms are really developed. Problem solving versus overreacting. We talk a lot about through the zones of regulation, matching your size of the problem or your reaction to the problem to the size of the problem. Nonverbal language, being able to look at all of you to see, okay, is this person bored? Is this person happy? Are they angry? Empathy, really having empathy for each other, treating each other with respect and kindness. Boredom, what do we do when we're bored? We feel like we always have to do something. School can be boring, even in the best teachers at Harrington. School can be boring sometimes in their classrooms. And following the group plan. What is the whole group doing? Instead of being a me thinker in a we world, we need to really help them in that sense. And balancing technology. Technology is amazing. It's such an important instructional tool. It's such an important way for us to be connected in our global society, but we need to find that balance. And Pam and I are really big supporters of bring back that play, bring back traditional play so that they can develop all of these skills. So in thinking about the behavior code, that's kind of the why. The behavior code is a book that's written for children with the more challenging needs. We have our PBIS that we'll be talking more about, which supports all children, but how can we support those children with the most challenging needs? And just something to think about, when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. So we as teachers need to think differently. We need to be reflective of our own teaching and see how can we keep up with society as the way it is right now and embrace it.
So another thing that we've kind of done at Harrington is our Meaningful Mentor program. This has been a program where, thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So this is a program where we kind of look at our students as a whole and we kind of identify those ones that need a little bit more of an adult check-in or a little bit more support. And we kind of pair them up with a mentor. And these mentors are all staff, so it includes our paraprofessionals, our recess aides, even the custodian, as we mentioned in other things, as well as classroom teachers. And so about half of the staff at Harrington has volunteered to be a mentor. They signed up in the beginning of the year. And then going forward, I think other teachers have kind of taken kids under their wings and been a mentor unofficially, if you will. So why we kind of have this program, it helps to improve student motivation. It provides student with a personal and individualized connection. It helps students to perceive school, teachers, and work in a more positive light. It encompasses all staff, kind of like I mentioned, teachers, custodians, and paraprofessionals. It provides unconditional positive regard. And the mentor program is knowing that one person cares, letting that student know that one person cares. So kind of just some examples of how it's helped. It helped with attendance problems for those students that had a hard time coming in. They started being able to come in more consistently, especially when they had that mentor or that person that was there to greet them at the door every morning. I know in particular a kindergarten student had a hard time transitioning, leaving that parent in the morning, and we paired them up with a mentor who was there to look out for them every morning, and now the student comes in with a huge smile on their face and it lights up every time. So seeing those connections is pretty amazing.
So the students, make connections through doing kind of all different things. Some do arts and crafts, have snacks, some eat lunch with their students, have a recess time, or even kind of eat breakfast. They take their prep time or their lunch time and are able to, meet the needs of their students that way. They have about 20 minutes a week where they can kind of divvy that up on their own. Another example is having a new student come in the middle of the year where they're kind of just plopped in and all the expectations are there. Having a mentor paired up with them allows them to learn or teach them the new expectations and kind of what we're looking for, and also helps them to feel safe and comfortable. The mentors develop real connections over time, and then they can even last. If, starting out in kindergarten with a mentor, they can have the same one for years to come. So it has some really great benefits. Thank you.
Ready? Yes. All right, so this is, can you tell us your name? Yes, tell me your name.
My name is Dell.
All right. And can you tell everybody what we do at Harrington School?
At Harrington School, we use the 3 R's.
And what are the 3 R's?
Respectful, responsible, and ready.
So how do you show that you are respectful?
I show I am respectful when I am quiet in the hallway.
And how do you show being responsible?
I show I am responsible by being kind and helpful and saying sorry when I make a mistake.
And what about being ready?
I show I am ready when I am sitting at my desk quietly waiting for the next activity.
We have Harry, and Harry's going to talk to you about his, Harry, why don't you come over here, honey, about his experience on the playground.
I like that.
Tell everybody your name.
Hello, my name is Harrison Sapp, and I would like to show you what good behavior you have to have on the playground. When on the playground, we treat people the way we want to be treated. I use 2 choices from the wheel. Number 1, I talked it out. And number 2, I told my friends to stop. One day, my friends and I were playing animal, and it started getting out of control. One person wasn't having fun. I worked it out with a friend and a recess aide to stop it. I gave my friend a hug because I wanted to make him feel better. Thank you.
Tyler Clay.
I'm going to be telling you about the rewards we had this year.
I'm going to be telling you about the rewards that we had this year. At Harrington, we have big rewards, and the way we earn them is by getting paws. And you can see that we're almost all the way up. And the only way that we get paws is by showing respect, responsibility, and being ready. The paws start in the office and go all the way around the school to the cafeteria, and that's where Harry the Lion is waiting. We have already had a crazy hair day, crazy sock day, and a dance party. My favorite reward was the dance party because I got to pick it, and I picked the starting song, which was Thriller. Thank you.
Next we have our 4th grade superhero.
My name's Ava Sack, and I'm going to be explaining why the 4th grade is here today. The 4th graders are in Harrington School are the superheroes of and the role models of the whole school, and we have to use a lot of the 3 R's to lead by example for the younger children in the school.
Hi, my name is Logan Kowalik. I will be showing you some of the ways we are responsible. We are responsible when we pick up trash on the playground and in the hallways and put them in the barrels. We show we are responsible by doing our homework and passing it in on time. We also show we are responsible when we offer to help someone in need, and we control our actions. We are also responsible when we are quiet in the hallways. We also are responsible when we treat the playground equipment nicely. Thank you.
My name is Molly Mahoney, and I'm going to be representing the superheroes of the school. So here is Ava's, and she said that I am respectful when I push in chairs at school. Here is Logan's, and he said that I am respectful when I clean my room without being asked. And last but not least, there is mine. And I said, I am respectful when I stand up for someone who is being bullied.
Boys and girls, can you all just gather around the mission statement and Ava?
And Ava's talking about the mask.
Okay,
The last thing.
thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Ava.
So as you can see in the picture, there's a class wearing masks, and those masks represent how we are ready. And some examples of us being ready are putting away our supplies, having our voices off, and having our whole body listening. Mission statement is,
Harrington is a community where our minds and bodies are ready for learning. We treat others with respect and take responsibility for creating a positive school for all.
So that's the end of our show. I want to thank you all very much. This was wonderful that you took the time to listen to all the little things that we do in school, and I'm quite proud of these boys and girls. Can we leave them with the expression that we leave everybody every morning? Have a
Happy Harrington Day.
Thank you all very much.
Do we need to wait? They're here?
Like the super-
I just need to switch over. They're here.
Are they here then? Oh, the kids
All
then?
here?
Okay. Thank you very much, Harrington staff and students, for coming. You did a great job with the presentation. Super job. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're adorable, too.
You did a great job.
All right, next up on the agenda is, let me slide right here real quick. I'd like to introduce Christy Whittlesey, who is our coordinator for Fine and Performing Arts, and Allison Lacasse, and Sean Wright. If you guys would like to come up and talk a little bit about, we've had some major performances lately. Excuse me? And Amanda Rader, I'm sorry. We've had some major performances lately, and I will turn it over to you to share with us.
All right. It's going to be very difficult to follow up the Harrington
Oh,
students.
I didn't see
That
you
was
over there, Amanda,
wonderful.
sorry.
So I'm Christy Whittlesey. I'm the Fine and Performing Arts Coordinator, and thank you so much for having me here to share information about some recent national accomplishments by our arts department. First, I just want to share that each year our middle and high school visual arts students enter the Globe Scholastic Art Competition. And this year we had 2 McCarthy students receive gold keys in the competition, and their work was shipped to the national competition for scoring. And I'm excited to share that McCarthy artist Josie Lee's gold key piece has been awarded a national silver medal. Less than 1% of the 350,000 works submitted were recognized at the national level. So congratulations to art teacher Sarah Kiley and her student Josie Lee.
Wow.
We are also celebrating recent national music accomplishments. First, and I haven't even shared this with the music faculty yet, but I'm thrilled to share that for the 6th
consecutive year, Chelmsford has been designated a best community for music education in the United States by the NAM Foundation. Chelmsford is one of 4% of districts across the nation receiving this designation in 2018. And this award recognizes that Chelmsford is leading the way with learning opportunities as outlined in the Every Student Succeeds Act, which recommends music and the arts as important elements of a well-rounded education for all. So our teachers are here tonight because we had two of our music ensembles that recently performed in the National Spotlight. The first is our grades 6 through 12 All-Town Wind Ensemble, directed by Allison Lacasse and Sean Wright. This ensemble had a fabulous performance at Carnegie Hall a couple of weeks ago as part of the National Band and Orchestra Festival, right after winning their first ever gold medal at this year's Massachusetts Instrumental and Choral Conductors Association Festival. And I also want to acknowledge the CHS a cappella group, the Thursdays, facilitated by choral director Amanda Rader. You can currently catch the Thursdays competing on the WGBH television show Sing That Thing, and the ensemble performed this past weekend at Lincoln Center in New York City, where they were chosen as one of the groups representing North America at the International Championship of High School A Cappella Festival. And this is the second consecutive year that the Thursdays have been selected to perform at the ICHSA finals. So we have, we can have Allie and Sean maybe talk about the recent trip and performance at Carnegie Hall.
Tell me when you want me to play it. Okay.
Sounds great. Mike, just speak into the mic.
Great. So I just to, in case people aren't familiar with grade 6 through 12 All-Town Wind Ensemble, this is a group that was formed 5 years ago by Allie and I in an attempt to bring our schools together in a setting where they can perform music and band literature across school and across grade level. So it's a supplement and also an advanced setting to perform music literature, you know, and advance their knowledge. It gives our high school students an opportunity to mentor and teach, especially if they're interested in education and music, or education in general. And it gives our younger students, our middle school students, an opportunity to play what really is high school level music. When the group first started, we were about 35 students. This year, our enrollment was 82 students. And each year, the difficulty of the music they've played has gone up. We're not really sure what the long-term goals for the group are because it shifts every single year. Originally it was a retention and an education based, and it kind of has become, without an audition or anything like that, it's become one of our top performing groups as far as band literature goes. Because of that, we've tried to open this group up to different opportunities, including the Micah Festival, which we've performed at pretty consistently and has been a staple for at least band and orchestra festivals in Massachusetts, but also where we're looking for an opportunity to provide national exposure for the group because it is very unique. It's received, it's always a shock to music educators even that are adjudicating the group or listening to the group, because it's very rare that you find sixth graders playing next to seniors the same music, and the level of music is not at the sixth grade level but more at the 12th grade level for what these advanced musicians are playing. So it's pretty incredible. We're surprised every year by it, and we're excited that it continues to grow. So that sets the environment for our audition where we send in a recording, and we're accepted for the National Band and Orchestra Festival with groups from all around the country, and that was the opportunity to perform at Carnegie Hall. So I'll let Allie explain a little bit about the trip, but that's kind of how we found ourselves here 5 years later. So.
All right, thank you again for having us. So we decided to audition for this festival last year, again, like Sean said, to advance their experience outside of just playing in Massachusetts. We wanted to expose them to a concert hall that is known throughout the world in a touring setting, but also in an experience where they can actually perform on stage and feel what it's like to be a musician performing in such an iconic landmark in the United States. So we auditioned the group just using a concert video from their December 2017 concert, or 16 concert.
Yeah.
Yes, and we were accepted, and we announced it to the students about a year before the trip, so we had a fair amount of time to plan an itinerary that was fun but also cultural and historic, and we provided a 3.5 day trip where the students saw 2 Broadway shows. They participated in an Aladdin workshop with cast members from the Broadway show, Aladdin. And that one had nothing really to do with playing instruments. It was an opportunity for students who are involved in theater and choral activities in Chelmsford to sing and dance and express themselves in another artistic way, and also to meet people that are actually out in the business and have a chance to ask them questions about what it's like to be a professional in show business, especially in the very competitive nature that is the Broadway world in New York City. The students had just great experiences walking around the city, experiencing Times Square, and just seeing Herald Square and the Macy's building, and it was just a wonderful trip. And for us to plan this and do this for the first time, we were very impressed with how well the students traveled. All of our chaperones were incredible, keeping 68 students together in New York City with no drama, no incidents at all. It was smooth and fun, and everyone had a smile on their face from the beginning to the end. And of course, the highlight and the reason we were there was to perform at Carnegie. And the personal anecdote from me as a conductor, being on stage at the end of our warm-up, right before we were to come back on stage officially and perform, I turned around and I saw our Chelmsford crowd that we usually see at the PAC in the seats at Carnegie Hall. So it was a little bit of an unexpected emotional experience for me, because it felt like home, but we were in this very adrenaline-filled situation where we had to perform a concert in it's a place that we as professional musicians never really thought that we would make, and here we got to experience it with our students for the first time. So we're just very excited to have friends and family, and Christy Whittlesey was there to support us, and that just meant so much. So we do have a short video of a couple of videos from the Aladdin workshop and some photos. The reason you're not seeing any video from the Carnegie performance is that they were extremely strict in the audience, and anyone who tried to take a video was immediately asked to turn their phone off, and we have very rough, kind of tricky video with that. So you'll see pictures of the Carnegie performance. So we're ready. Thank you.
Cross your fingers. Let's make sure everything works. I didn't test this one yet.
thank you so much. And we really want to thank all of our parents who support the group week to week. Carrie Moore for the amazing photography. We had a professional photographer following us the entire trip. And anyone who donated to make this happen. We couldn't have done it without the community's help and support.
Oops, sorry, preemptive strike here.
And now we can switch gears.
So thank you. Pulled up my video. I could tell you a lot of similar things. We had a very, very similar experience with our trip. Just to give you a little bit of background about the International Championship of High School A Cappella, this is an international tournament. The Thursdays have competed in this for 3 years. They have gone to the finals for the past 2. It begins with the submission of a video audition, and they then prepared a 12-minute set. It included 4 songs, which were chosen by the students, arranged, some arranged by me, some arranged by the students. This year, their set featured an original composition by one member, Emily Bruce. The students did all their own choreography, and in many ways took ownership of the creation of this set. They had to get through 2 initial rounds of competition. They call it quarterfinals and then semifinals, each getting increasingly more competitive as they go up against the best of the best from around the region. And they were one of 9 groups selected to perform at the finals in New York City this past weekend. So I'll let you hear about it in the students' own words.
Now we're ready, right?
We did a lot of cleaning up choreography and like preparing ourselves basically for any like situation or stage. Because once you get on the stage, like we can't saw beautiful theater, but you kind of prepare yourself for anything. And we worked a lot on dynamics and just the musical nuances of stuff, perfecting the typing set. And we did talk a lot about the deeper meaning and like the story behind the set, and that really helped us improve both musically and like performance-wise.
How did you sort of get your head in the game for this performance? You know, it's a high-stakes
Oops, we much
So it was an incredible experience. I'll note, just as Allie said, our Chelmsford kids are fantastic travelers. They made me incredibly proud, just the way they carried themselves on this trip. And I do want to give a very big thank you to our new parent booster group, the Association of Chelmsford A Cappella, who have been a source of steadfast support this year, and they pledged to fully fund the costs of this trip. And I'll just note that their big fundraiser for the year is happening this weekend. It is our Acapocalypse concert series, Friday and Saturday night at 7 o'clock at the Rondina Performing Arts Center. So if you've not had a chance to hear the Thursday's competition set, they will be performing both nights along with their sister group, the Crescendos. On Friday night, the Thursdays will be debuting new repertoire, and on Saturday night, they will perform their competition set. So we'd love to see you there.
So thank you all for your support. And before we wrap up, I just want to acknowledge the many, many hours that go into planning trips like these. These teachers really have gone way above and beyond their regular school responsibilities in teaching, so that the students in the Chelmsford schools can be empowered as learners, grow as musicians and individuals, and create lifelong memories that they'll treasure for their whole lives. So it's really my honor to work with such a dedicated, creative, and collaborative team. So bravo to you all and to your students. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Okay. Next item on the agenda this evening, item number 3 is an announcement. So, as you know, probably the last month and a half, 2 months or so, we've been working. We advertised for a principal for Harrington School to take over for the start of next school year. It was a process that began probably after February vacation and wrapped up over April vacation. But we had advertised for the position. We assembled a team of people to help with the interviews. Staff, I want to really thank for volunteering to participate in the interview panel. We had a number of parents who helped out with the process. You have a memo in your packet that just details the individuals that were involved. And at the very end of the process, we actually have a gentleman here this evening, Mr. Robert Aslan, who has been selected to be the new principal of Harrington Elementary School. So, come on up. It's your turn. Sit at the table.
Yeah. Hot seat.
We've all got several questions for you, so we're just going to,
Usually you get water for things like this.
Oh, I have plenty.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, just wanted an opportunity to introduce Rob to the public, offer an opportunity to say a few words, but we're very impressed with Rob's background. He most recently is serving as an assistant principal of Triton Middle School. Prior to that, had worked at Lowell Catholic High School for a couple of years, and then prior to that, at the beginning of his teaching career, actually was at McCarthy Middle School as a teacher for a number of years. So a lot of individuals will know Rob and his history in the district. We think he's a perfect fit for Harrington. We're very happy to have him on board. We sent an announcement out to the staff and families at the end of last week. He's not going to be coming on board officially until July 1st. Patty, we want to thank and appreciate kind of doing this year for us in the interim. She's not going anywhere until the end of the school year, and we'll actually do a nice transition with Rob coming on board. But Rob has actually volunteered to kind of come to the school a little bit ahead of time, participate in some spring events to get acclimated to the community. We'll work with the parent groups to maybe hold a couple of different parent forums, but just wanted an opportunity to introduce Rob to the community, welcome you on board. Very happy to be working with you, and give you an opportunity to say a few words if you'd like.
Sure. Well, first off, just want to say everybody's lucky. I forgot my 32-page personal narrative in my truck, so this will be quick. No, this is a wonderful opportunity for me. I'm truly grateful and very thankful to be selected for this position. When I went to the school to visit the school a couple weeks ago, it was a wonderful time. I had a great time walking around, seeing the kids, seeing the staff, meeting the staff. I was truly excited for this opportunity. I look forward to, working with the students, the faculty, the staff, and parents of the Harrington, and continue to do great things with them and continue its road of success that it has. And I'm truly grateful for this opportunity. I'm very excited to be a part of that school community and to be back in Chelmsford Public Schools as well.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. And,
Thank you.
We look forward to hearing from you next year and during this presentation that we just did tonight.
Take notes.
Yeah, take notes.
Take notes, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming. We look forward to working with you. Do you mind if we jump out of order and go back to Nick? He came in. He must have. And thank you again, Harrington staff, for coming this evening. Really appreciate it.
It was Janet's birthday, Janet Hoffman's
Oh,
birthday.
Janet,
and
happy
she thought-
birthday.
So we were gonna sing happy birthday, no, okay.
That's already been done.
Thank you. Yeah, we just kind of. Okay. So originally, we're just jumping around the agenda just a little bit, but Nick Parley is here from the town parks and one of our departments. But Nick is going to talk about a project that was going to be under good news for an upcoming playground enhancement at Byham School. So I'd like to have welcome you and allow you an opportunity to enlighten the committee on that a bit.
Thank you. I apologize. I thought your meeting started at 7, if I'm taking
No,
this
it's
order.
fine,
Yeah.
it's perfect timing.
Rachel's a little shy, too. It's nice the room cleared out, so.
Yes, very shy.
So I'm here doing a little bit of housekeeping. We've been working for a couple months now?
Since September.
Since September on fundraising, finalizing, and planning for a new playground at the Byham School. The Byham School playground is the oldest in the district, and it's starting to show its age a little bit. Rachel and I have kind of collaborated to, we worked with the PTO and a couple parent groups to find a design that would work for the parent, or the school. So we initially have been, got some funding from CPC, $75,000, the Community Preservation Fund. That needs to be released from town meeting, that funding. So Board of Selectmen have voted for it. Finance Committee have voted for it. And I was thinking to myself, I want to avoid any awkward situation where they said, does the school committee have an opinion on this? I just wanted to give you guys a opportunity to officially look at it. Either have an opinion, have no opinion.
Ask any questions.
Yep.
So I go to the BSA meetings for Byham.
Yep.
My daughter's in Byham as well, and I've seen you come in and
At
speak.
the very beginning of the process.
Yeah, at the very
I saw you.
beginning,
Yep.
And there's been an extraordinary amount of work to improve this playground, and any parent that has a child in the Byham will tell you that playground that is there currently is not what it needs to be, right? Especially with some of the other playgrounds. There's some beautiful ones in this town. So I fully support this effort, and I'll hope if you need people to speak during town meeting towards it, I think you won't find anybody here that will speak against it.
Do you want to maybe just kind of touch on some of the, because as I was reading through the slides, just some of the enhancements or the more inclusive kind of nature of the playground going in?
Before you speak, and I want to point out, I mean, just so people realize that the parents of the school and the people that have contributed, BSA is putting in a lot of their own money, so about $40,000. So this isn't something I think that's just an ask from the town. I think that parents have contributed as well, and that needs to be really pointed out. So that's all. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
So right now, the current playground is on 2 levels of play, with the
Little kid, I call it.
the
on the
the littler kid structure up higher with a larger kid structure down below, and it's kind of separated the play and doesn't do a whole lot for inclusive play. This playground being approximately 18 years old, standards have changed, the whole methodology of playgrounds have changed since then. That we're looking to do 1 level of play with several ADA accessible components. I don't know if you would like to add anything to that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually really important to me. I've done a lot of charity work, and one of the children I work with is in a wheelchair, and the parents have always talked to me about accessibility. So I also thought of the students who have social emotional issues, maybe are on the spectrum as well, and what we found is that with the new playgrounds, all of the designs are reviewed so that there's a balance where there's, above ground play, but also at ground level play, so that students who maybe are intimidated to join the crew still are able to come over and play on the structure. So the proposed plan that we've put in includes that play. It also has standalone components, so for students who maybe don't want to play with a bunch of kids at once, it might be overwhelming. There are structures where they can play either on their own or only with one or two other students, so that gives them that opportunity. It will also have an ADA compliant swing. Right now we don't have that.
Two, the basket seat.
Oh,
has this
yes,
one.
and
Yep.
then a basket seat. There's a spinner, which is a standalone, that students who may be in a wheelchair can be transferred to easily and are secure to be able to spin on the spinner without assistance once they're transferred. So there were a bunch of different components that we made sure we added. We also added a couple of low-level play structures for the younger children who are still in imaginative play mode, because again, the structures that they have now don't really give them that opportunity to socialize in an imaginative play. Nick did mention the 2 levels of play, so I just wanted to kind of clarify. So kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade are allowed on the upper level only. They get 1 play structure plus access to swings. And then the 3rd and 4th are allowed on the lower level plus the swings. This new playground, because it would be 1 level, the students would have access to everything. So if you can imagine during recess, and you all know the schools, there are 508 students right now at the biome. So each grade level is roughly 100 students. Try to get 100 students on 1 play structure. I've watched the play time. So this would be a tremendous improvement for that as well, which will add to safety so that it's not overcrowded. I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
What would the timeline on this be? If you were to get
Yep.
funds approved?
Yep.
When would you start? When would you think you would
Yep,
finish?
we'd start right away.
Last day, or day after last day of school.
Right. So we would order the equipment once we have the funding, so that we would have it available, so that Nick and his team from the DPW could come in, remove the old structures, level the play, that type of thing. And then the structures would go in so that it would be ready for start of school in August, late August.
Nick, have CPC funds been used before to build playgrounds?
So, not really. Recently, CPC has fully funded Roberts Field, so that you could count that as a playground. But as for school playgrounds, CPC hasn't been around long enough for major projects. The Harrington School was fully funded out of the modular school,
Right.
modular classroom funds. Before that, South Row got a large chunk of money from the proceeds from the insurance.
Yes.
But prior to that, there hasn't been a lot of town contributing to school playgrounds.
Now, the PTO funds that are going into it, the 40,000, I think you
Mhm.
said, they're already in place, they have that money to
Yes,
turn
those
over.
are secure. So they've been saving for years for that.
Okay, what about maintenance of whatever the ground cover is?
Yep. So
Who's going to do that, PTO?
Yep, PTO always does that
It's a
traditionally.
partnership.
Yep,
You know, the
between them.
PTO will order the mulch, DPW will spread it.
Okay.
That sort of.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Now, I know you sourced the equipment. Did you get all brand new, or did you look at,
Yep.
what did you do? I know, because one of the things I think you looked at was,
The bargain bin on sale.
So that's
yes, the
exactly.
bargain bin version of, but did we do that? Is that what we ended up looking at?
So, we did, and we're going to do a final assessment prior to order.
Perfect, perfect.
Yeah, so there may be additional.
So we might be able to get more for
Yep.
the same amount of money.
So I still foresee the main structures and the swings kind of being set.
Yep.
But additionally, we might be able to.
Squeeze a few more things
Yeah.
in. Awesome. Thank you.
Al
That's all
had a
I-
question?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion for the Chelmsford School Committee to support the release of $75,000 from CPC for use in replacing the Byam School playground.
Second motion.
Can we do that? Okay. All right.
Really, it's supportive, but.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstains? 5-0.
And I have a second thing to bring up as well.
You only get one vote, though.
So additionally, the Chelmsford Skate Park has finally got some traction. They have done some fundraising, and they are comfortable at the point where they'd like to start construction. this summer. The skate park being over at the McCarthy School, kind of by the turf fields. Kind of an interesting history with that. It was originally purchased by the CBA, the Chelmsford Business Association. Fell into disrepair because it wasn't used as it was intended. It was intended for skateboards, and that's right when BMX bikes got really popular, and they were just a little tougher on the equipment than you would expect. The current committee has put together a design of all concrete, which would be able to accommodate bikes, scooters, skateboards, the whole gambit. They were wondering what would be the process to approve signage. It is a school property. They wanted to go through the school committee. Would they need committee approval, or would that go through the superintendent's office? Mostly what they're looking for is they want to get some sort of consensus on the rules, and they wanted to be able to thank people that donated to the project.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So, general signage that's not like advertising signs can just be approved through, say, the superintendent's office. So if you were gonna have rules of the park or operating hours, things like that, you could just submit like a draft of what it would look like, and we would just approve that to go up. If there's actually advertising involved, so if you wanna thank sponsors and things
Yeah,
like that.
thank you, ABC Landscaping.
Yep. It's permissible. The school committee does have a policy that basically just indicates you would kind of present them a mock-up of what the sign would look like. It would just need to meet some criteria. You know, we wouldn't be able to advertise, say, alcohol, things like that, smoking products. But if it was more typical, generic kind of signage, we would just present that to the school committee. They would get it in their packet, and then they would vote to approve or disapprove. I can actually forward you the policy. There's not a lot of restriction around like size of the signs and things like that. It's more of the content, just making sure it's age appropriate and like educationally appropriate. Those are your only restrictions. But that would be the school
They're shooting
committee.
for something similar to the 110 baseball fields.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, I don't personally foresee an issue like size-wise or anything. It would just be more the content, but I could work with you on that.
Yep.
And whenever you were ready to have the sponsors' signs, we could just arrange to have them come forward to the school committee meeting. We do a little mock-up, and the school committee would then vote to approve or disapprove, and you could go forward.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's no action you need on that one tonight?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
You know, do you mind if I ask another one? Is there a plan for like this, the concrete piece of it? Is that gonna go forward regardless of the signage? Or is there a timeline for when that would go forward?
So they're shooting for this summer.
Okay.
So they're looking to do it in a two-phase process. Phase one, 4 small to medium-sized elements. Phase 2, 1 large element, all concrete.
Within that existing footprint?
Yep.
Now, where's the funding for that coming from?
Fundraising and $10,000 from CPC. So they have matching funds right now. So they're at approximately $20,000.
Nick, what's the current material?
So there's not much left in there now.
Right.
But prior to it, it was aluminum and steel frames with a product called batterboard, which they put on around hockey rinks. So like a fiberglass composite.
Do you foresee that perhaps children will be more injured on concrete?
So the tallest element we have now is going to be, I think, 4.5 feet. I don't know about you, but every time I've fallen down on fiberglass, and you get those
You get the
weird little
splinters,
splinters.
yes.
I almost think concrete might be an improvement.
Okay.
But we plan to put recommended safety equipment as part of the build process.
Thank you.
Yep.
You really need it for the durability.
Oh, I get that,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and we looked at some other stuff. We looked at rolled steel. We looked at,
helmets will be
some-
required perhaps.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, what is the liability if it's on school property?
I mean, technically, if there was some kind of a legal action, the legal action would be against the town and not the schools. We're a town department. So we'd obviously want to work with them to make sure it's as safe as possible, post any kind of, like you
Yep.
said, regulations, things like that.
My understanding is it falls under general liability if we don't charge for it, it's kind of a use at your own risk facility, and we're going to post use at your own risk as well.
proximity to the police station helps, I think. Somewhat.
No comment.
Okay.
We're trying to distance ourselves from any sort of stigma that that particular group might have.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
So you don't
Thank you
need
very
a
much.
vote on that
Nope.
tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, that would just be the process, so
Yep.
if it was small signage.
I just wanted to get it out there in the open. It's something we're working on.
Sure.
Don't be surprised.
Okay,
All right?
good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving along, we're gonna head back to the agenda. And item number 4 before you this evening. Each year, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education requires an external financial audit of the school department and our report that we submit to the DOE on finances. So for the second year in a row, Powers and Sullivan, who is the auditor for the town, also came in to perform the audit of the school department. And again, you have a finding-free audit. As you read through it, it's only 4 pages, again, because there are no findings. On the third page, it basically, under indirect cost rates on another matter. This is a new thing this year, Joanna had looked into for us. The DOE wants to know if districts actually charge an indirect cost rate on grants or not, and they just need to note that in the audit. We don't, so it's just more of a clarification thing for the DOE. But I want to commend Joanna and her staff in her office for producing this report. Obviously, the audit speaks volumes for the accuracy reporting and the fact that there are no findings and also even just no recommendations is significant. So, this is the second year in a row. Pretty extensive when you have a $59 million budget of 57 for last year. And, again, no findings and no recommendations. So I just want to convey that to you guys as a board.
Great.
Great.
Can I just ask 2 questions,
Yeah.
please? The first is Powers and Sullivan doing the student activities audit as well this year for the high
They
school?
will be, yes.
Okay, so they will be, so it hasn't been done yet then?
No, what we're gonna end up doing, we've just been having some scheduling issues with them, but they are gonna be doing the audit this year. We're gonna get in a cycle where we have a high school account, and then we also have a middle school account. So 1 year they will audit the high school account, and the next year they'll audit the middle school account. So we'll have one audit each year, so that each account actually gets audited once every other year.
Okay.
And that's the recommendation.
All right. And then the other question I had was, the original audit that was done several years ago, that was by Melanson and Heath?
Correct.
So, and they had some recommendations, correct?
Correct.
Have we reviewed those recently?
We reviewed them at the time. We kind of created a whole spreadsheet of what the recommendations were and what our responses were to them. It's something, if you'd like to, we certainly could kind of revive that. I know when we went through that, we basically took all the recommendations, again, kind of painstakingly went through and said, yes, we think we should do this, no, we think we shouldn't. The committee did have a discussion at the time, and we've enacted the various recommendations that they had. Now, I think at the time, the town still had Powers and Sullivan doing the regular town audit and perhaps even the school audit. The Melanson and Heath audit was like an additional audit on top of that.
Okay.
So for that particular time period, and I'd have to refresh my memory because it might have been looking for different things than a traditional like end-of-year report audit. But, we certainly have that on file and we could bring that up at a future date if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd like to bring that back up and just make sure that, we've done everything that we said that we were going to do. See where we stand in relationship to that audit.
Sure.
Thank you.
Other questions? Anybody? Next item.
All right, moving right along. Item number 5, I'm going to actually ask Joanna, if you don't mind, to provide you with the third quarter financial report. So you're provided with monthly reports just through the Dropbox, but then once every 3 months or each quarter, we actually do a little bit more of a detailed report, a little bit of an audit. A little bit of a financial report for you. So I'm going to ask Joanna to walk you through that. And again, this includes all of your local budget accounts, your revolving funds, your grant funds. So you can take that away, Joanna.
Thank you. So in your packet is my cover memo and then about a 19-page document of the year-to-date budget to the end of March. And then the last page is the grant and revolving funds. The memo isn't changed too much since the prior quarter. The variances that came to light early on pretty much continued through the third quarter. I've highlighted some of the larger ones, most of them being favorable variances. The first one is on page 5 through 7. This is a very large category. It's where the classroom teachers' salaries are budgeted. And this category is favorable by $241,805. And the main reason for that is we came in slightly under on the salaries reserved for COLA by $15,000, and then for the salary reserve for lane changes by $51,000. The rest of the variances are due to hiring teachers at a little bit less overall than Master Step 3. We budget at Master Step 3 for all the vacancies, but then depending on who you hire or who comes into the role, that's what their actual salary is. If they come in at Bachelor Steps 1, that's where they come in at. And just as a reminder, we did hire an additional teacher at the Harrington, so that ate into a little bit of the favorableness, and that was brought up to the committee back in August when the enrollment figures for first grade came in. So that's the largest variance. The next one is in the page 7 is in the specialist teachers. So that's special ed, reading, ELL, and slightly favorable there as well. We did have a vacancy for a little bit of an out-of-district coordinator, and that's the largest contributor to that variance. Kind of skip through to pages 14 and 15 in the psychological services. This one we are a little bit unfavorable, $67,000, and if you recall, this was, we did have an extra psychologist that was to be funded from the school choice fund rather than the local budget. And we will make that journal entry to the school choice fund if we need to, or we may just, depending on where we land this year, we may not need to make that transfer and fund that through other favorable variances in labor. When you go to page 2 of the memo, this is the last page of the report, the largest, besides labor, the largest line item, which is the out-of-district tuitions. And just as a reminder, we have 3 sources for out-of-district special ed tuitions: the local budget, the circuit breaker revolving fund, and the school choice revolving fund. And the way we've been doing this is we charge all of the expense to the local budget, and then at the end of the year we will make journal entries to transfer to the other 2 funds, and I'll bring that forward to the committee in the June and July timeframe right before we close the fiscal year. But if you look, this is the overall picture of where we are right now. We were expecting $7.4 million in special ed tuitions. Right now we're at $7.323 million, so we're pretty close to that original estimate. When you look at all the offsets to that, from circuit breaker, from school choice, and the Valley Collaborative credit, which I'll talk about in a minute, we have funding of $8.55 million if we needed it for special ed tuitions. Then to fund the $7.4 million, we'll still have a reserve of $1.155. And as the superintendent has said in the past, we'd like to grow that to about $1.5 million as a reserve for special ed tuitions. The next section is school choice, and we're expecting, remember our carryover balance from prior years was $988,000. We've brought in $278 of revenue this year, so we're at $1.266 million. I increased this forecast a little bit in this report. We're expecting another $64,000 between April, May, and June. So that'll bring us to $1.3 million. And if we take the offset for special ed tuitions of the $250,000 originally projected when we put the budget together, this will still leave $1 million in the school choice fund for the committee to then decide based on the superintendent's recommendations on what to use that for in the coming years, such as technology improvements, anything to do with teaching and learning. The narratives down below are just to kind of repeat what's already in the budget book about special ed tuitions and the offsets. And then this also points out the Valley Collaborative credit is in the second paragraph, where we originally thought it would be total of $440,000. We have the figure from Valley. It's going to be $528,817,000. And then the final paragraph is about, I'm going to, in the meeting in May, I have another budget transfer to bring to the committee because the custodial contract was settled. We paid them their retro and their clothing allowance. It's going to be about $28,000. I'm going to ask to move out of the salary reserve accounts down into the custodial account. And then I'm also going to present a forecast of where we're going to be on our $57 million budget. We are going to come under in the labor areas for reasons I noted. We also have some people who have approved unpaid leaves that I want to calculate a little more specifically for those savings. And then in the end, these favorable variances will help offset the need to tap into the circuit breaker fund for special ed tuitions and to let that reserve grow. Does anyone have any questions about the March financials or the memo before I move on to the grant and revolving funds?
Any questions by John?
The school choice cutoff date is coming up. Do we have any applications? Is it still open?
We haven't started yet.
You haven't
So
started.
at the next school committee meeting, I'll be bringing you a recommendation as to how many slots to open for next year.
Okay.
You need to vote to approve that first, and then we'll actually advertise them.
Okay.
And then usually we allow 2 or 3 weeks, so that process will take place by early June.
Okay.
And then we'll do the notifications.
What happens with a student who's coming from a charter? Does the money from the originating district follow?
Give me like an example.
Well, if they're coming from, what's the one up in Tingsboro? If they're a student.
Well, if they were currently enrolled in Innovation and they come to us, not immediately. So what we will end up doing is, like, if they were in Innovation this year.
They're not a Chelmsford student.
No, I know, but that's fine.
Okay.
But if they're, wherever they are this year, next year, if they come to us on day one, we'll report them on October 1st as part of our enrollment. And then our Chapter 70 calculation for the following school year will be predicated on that October 1 number.
Okay.
So we technically won't receive any new money for them next year. We'd receive money the following year.
Following, okay.
It's somewhat of a wash because, we potentially could lose a kid that, we're still technically getting the money for a year. But there's a lag time of a year before you get funding.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions on the general budget?
The only thing I would add, overall, just, I think, we're really in solid shape. My takeaway, just as a layman, we're in a really solid shape as far as our budget goes. We have developed some surpluses through the budget that I think will allow us to not have to tap into extra circuit breaker funding or extra school choice funding. Our funding strategy has been, as Joanna indicated, we really want to try to move that special ed reserve fund closer to the $1.5 million. That will allow us greater flexibility in years to come if there's any swings in student enrollments or whatnot. We won't be in a situation where we have to kind of go back to the town and ask for funding if we have some control to be able to do that. So our strategy has been to not spend down our local budget, but to really allow those surpluses to build. And then at the end of the year, we've been doing those transfers to be able to actually get the funding into that account. I think we'll be very close, within this year or so, of being at that $1.5 million figure. And what that's then going to allow the school committee to do, when we do say our third quarter projection of the past, what I'm used to doing is also say then presenting a list of recommended transfers to the committee and some one-time purchasing type options. So when we have that reserve fully built up, and let's say we're projecting $200,000 or $300,000 of surplus at the end of the year, I would then come to you and say, you know, again, I feel we're on solid footing, we're gonna have enough money to make the year, this is my projection. I recommend, you know, you consider these one-time purchases. We would transfer money through the budget to be able to do that and be able to start, you know, buying some of the, or implementing some of the one-time kind of not recurring cost type items to the budget. So whether it be a physical enhancement to a school or particular equipment that a school's been needing, I think a year from now we'll be able to actually start doing that, where we really for the last couple of years have been in more of a savings mode, trying to build up that reserve. The other fund that I'm happy that's kind of, you know, maintaining its balance, if not growing, is school choice. And that is also just another kind of strategy. School choice funding is funding that comes directly back to the school committee. It's within your purview. You can use it at any time to be able to pay for those educational expenses. We kind of have had that sitting in reserve again because we don't have that special ed fund quite where I'd like it to be. So that's like our backup reserve at this point. But when again you have your regular circuit breaker fund at a good level, fully funded, that's another funding source that the school committee will be able to utilize. And we talked a little bit about longer term. I'd love to be able to earmark some of that funding for potentially some kind of a technology initiative in the district. If we could do some kind of, say, a one-on-one type device initiative, that would be a good funding source to be able to utilize for that. We just haven't been quite there yet, but I really do hope within the next number of months that, you know, once we kind of close the books, we have all of our figures certified, we have that cushion where we want it to be, then I would be able to start bringing those recommendations to you. So, you know, kind of a year out, we'd be able to actually start really investing some additional funds other than just our regular operating budget in some of those special type programs. But I'm very happy with where we are financially for the year. I really don't have any concerns. And I think we'll finish the year out strong as far as the local operating budget is concerned.
Why don't we have any funds in the musical repair line?
Are you on the revolving fund summary? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
She hasn't decided that yet. She's gonna do that next.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, you're on there.
Right, so the last page is the grant and revolving funds. The top part are the grants, and those the implementation plans are going well, and the coordinators and department heads are sticking to their plans and spending out their funds very smoothly throughout the year. The middle section is the private grants, and then down the lower section are the revolving funds. My understanding of the musical instrument repair, to answer Barbara's question, years ago that fund must have been voted on and established, and at some point it stopped being funded this way, and now we have a lot of musical instrument repair right in the local budget in that budget. So, but I leave it on here because it was just a fund that was established, and if I went back years and years, we could pull it and see what was funded through the revolving fund.
I would also just guess there must have been some kind of a situation in the past where if something potentially broke and something had to be replaced, that'd be the fund to put it through.
Yeah.
But it hadn't been used in years. But again, I appreciate Joanna leaving it on the list just because it was an approved fund. Technically, you could use it in the future if you wanted to. It just hasn't had any activity.
Any questions on the grants or? Just want to echo what the superintendent said, and thank you for all your hard work and all your staff's hard work. And you know, it seems like we were in great shape last year, good shape this year, and you know, it looks like in the future we'll continue to be there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next on the agenda are the liaison assignments. So in your packet, I did include some new liaison assignments. So I tried to my best to honor people's requests. I sent an email just to see what people would be interested in, and I also tried to spread some of these responsibilities out so that no one person was in meetings 3-4 times a week. So I tried to equally spread out the PTO responsibilities and the subcommittee responsibilities and the other boards in town, so that we're all doing the equal amount. A couple things that I would ask is if you could try to reach out to the PTO presidents of the schools that you're the liaison for, just to let them know that you're the liaison, and if you make contact so that they can get in touch with you when they have meetings. Same thing with if you're on any boards, if you could reach out to the chairs of those boards so that if they are having a meeting that might be relevant to the school department, they let us know, and we can make sure that somebody gets there. And I also ask people to remember that, as liaison, you are representing the school committee, so you're there to express things that are going on at our meetings, some of the things that we've been discussing, and to bring back information from them to us that they might think we might want to know, the general public, and just to try to refrain from personal opinions, expressing your own views on things. Again, you're a representative of the school committee, so we want to be all kind of putting the same message forward when we go to these groups. So any questions on the liaison assignments?
I had a couple.
Yep.
First of all, is there any chance that we could review these maybe somewhere down the road? Because as I'm looking at some of these, so for example, the turf fields, I don't think they've met since 2014, but I still think that we need to have a liaison to the turf fields, because I think there's still some unresolved issues.
Maintenance.
Well, maintenance, and then the replacement of the carpet is coming up.
Yep.
And then also, I think that when it was originally put in, I think that there were some groups in town that were told that there was going to be an opportunity for them to be able to use that, and I'm not sure that that's happened yet. In particular, I'm thinking of the track teams using McCarthy, but they don't have proper storage, so those kinds of things. And then, so the reason I also mentioned about looking at this down the road is because, if these are viable, then I think it's great to have them. If they're not viable any longer, maybe to look at replacing them. Because one of the things that I'm thinking about, based on the school committee goal of academic achievement, and we wanted to reach out to various groups, that there might be other groups that we want to replace some of these with, that, maybe, as I think about some of our goals for the future, making sure that we're getting out there and we're kind of publicizing what is happening in the schools, and making sure that people are aware of what the issues are, so that, down the road when we're talking about some of these major projects that we want to undertake, that, there's going to be a good base of support for that.
Yeah, we could definitely do that, and, I'm sure, we could maybe get some history on some of these committees, and,
Right.
and maybe when they were active and when they stopped being active. I know, mentioned before, the recycling committee, is that something that we need a representative to, those type of things. Evelyn brought up the wellness committee, so, as I said before, if anybody's interested in that, let me know. You'd be interested in that? Okay, so I'll just jot you down there.
Everyone asked me, the wellness committee meets April 30th at 3 o'clock over at CHS.
So April 30th, what time, do you know what time?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. So thank you, Donna. Okay. Any other questions on the liaison assignments? Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is to speak a little bit about our format, our agenda, that type of thing. So this is something I asked to put on there. One of the goals that we agreed earlier to kind of look at involved how we run our meetings and some of the procedures, how we set our agenda, that type of thing. So as part of that, what I've asked is the superintendent that we could meet like a week before our normal meeting, so we can kind of discuss the tentative agenda, then put out something to you all to see if there are other items that you would like to be added to the agenda. This week, I actually sent out such an email, and I got a great response. I mean, I got terrific ideas about things that we should be discussing, and so got to the point where we decided we're going to have to kind of sit back and sort of prioritize and kind of decide when we'd want to kind of tackle all these different things. So hopefully, in the next couple of days, we'll be able to get that list back out to you with some tentative dates. And it'll be a working document, so as we cross things off, we can add new things on. As things come up, we can add new things on, but just to make sure that everybody's concerns are being met as we go through that. One of the other things that we kind of talked about was, as was brought up earlier, how we do our public comment, and as luck would have it, one of the policies that was looked at by the subcommittee did sort of revolve around that, and those policies were presented in your packet. And I believe the major difference is what the topic matter would be during public comment. The MASC policy, it looks like, kind of limits the public comment before a meeting to agenda items, which, I think the reason for having public comment is so we as a committee can get people's opinions before we have to make decisions. So I don't know if either Al or Barbara, you want to speak to that at all in terms of the subcommittee, or what kind of discussions went on regarding that, or?
No.
Okay.
No, I think the only thing that in looking at this, I don't know that excuse me, I have to cramp. The MCAS proposal, I don't know, unless I missed it, are we gonna respond, because that was a thing in the current policy.
Yeah, so what I ended up doing for just the purpose of this report is I just gave you what our current policy was and then what the MASC recommendation was. We're not actually taking a vote on the policy tonight. When in this, yes, you're not acting on that tonight. I was just giving this for discussion purposes. The big change really is, and this is the norm in most other communities, under public participation at the actual school committee meeting, people are supposed to come up and actually just speak on agenda items so that, the administration is aware of what's going to be talked about, the committee members are aware, and ultimately they're weighing in on, how they think you should act on a particular item. It wouldn't just be like any item that they wanted to talk about. I do think that's a proper way to go going forward. He is making some slight tweaks based on our conversations that day, but I think the other point of discussion is, and I know it's happened in the past, when would you have more just general discussions with the community about just educational topics, right? Things that just aren't, say, on an agenda, but, because the school committee meetings are really supposed to be more kind of business organizational meetings. So, what kind of forums could we actually kind of invite the public to be able to participate in? That could be more free-flowing, that could be that exchange of the more conversational piece, so that's when you'd be responding. That's what I thought you might want to talk about.
Right, so I think that's the conversation that we can have tonight, or at least kind of throw some ideas out there. If we were to go with a policy like this, for limited public comment to agenda items, what are some other ways that we could encourage conversations with the general public, whether it be in a separate meeting, a public forum, or something at the end of a meeting? I don't know what's been done in the past, or what suggestions people might have.
I have actually a question on the participation regarding docketed items.
Right.
Was that during public input or during the agenda?
What do you mean?
It says right here on the, this is what we currently do with regards to the docket. It says participation regarding docketed items. And I didn't know if it meant as the item came up on the agenda, people could raise their hand and ask to participate, or if they had to do it during public input.
Well, see, this actually comes up, I've only known this to come up during budget hearings.
Okay.
So traditionally, and again, he kind of said that particular policy is a little out of order, like it doesn't jive with the MASC policy order. But normally what will happen during a budget hearing is people would come up and make a global comment on the budget process or whatnot.
Okay.
But then if individuals want to speak on, say, a particular page or a specific item, oftentimes when they come up, they might say, I have a question on transportation, but I'd like to be heard at that time compared to the beginning, because you kind of forget what they said. So this would basically just allow the chair or the school committee to recognize someone out of order to be able to come and talk about any particular item. It still has to be an item on the agenda or an item that's being discussed by the committee, but it would allow them to technically come up during the meeting and make their pitch.
So only during budget meetings?
Well, no, that's just, I'm saying when it's happened.
Okay,
I've
I
never
see.
seen it happen anywhere else, but there's nothing, I guess, prohibiting it
Well,
if
yeah,
the
it's
committee
funny, because
voted
I
to
actually
allow
didn't
it.
know we could do this, so.
But is that in the MASC?
No, it's not.
Okay, so
That's
that's
a
just on
Chelmsford
our.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
The MASC policies are pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
They're
I see that,
spelled out
yeah.
reactions, and it's pretty tight.
Yep.
My concern with either of them is, what about something that just happened in our town?
Right.
Right.
Well, you can't speak on it because it's not on our agenda. And who decides what goes on the agenda? I know it's Dennis and Jay. What if they don't want something to be on the agenda? So they could really limit the discussion by not allowing it to go to the agenda. Not saying you would, but you do have that control to do that.
Sure.
So, it can be a very tight, limiting discussion. I would love to see once a month that we just have an open discussion. Allow anyone to come to the mic and, have it out. I think that would be helpful.
And that's what we're looking at. I mean, because it is limiting,
Yeah.
and there are reasons for limiting, because, again, if people come up and they speak on items that aren't on our agenda, we're not supposed to have a discussion about that because it's not a part of the agenda, but, we would like to give people other opportunities. It's just a matter of how to frame that, how to do
I
that.
think
So-
to Barbara.
Yep, I was gonna say, yep, go ahead. That's- yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say,
No member.
to Barbara's point, the MASC policy is gonna have your regular meetings, and then they have language for a special meeting.
Right.
So if something were, because they really try to keep the regular meetings very business-oriented, but if there was a hot topic, something that came up, instead of having the regular meeting be dominated by that kind of a discussion, what their policies allow for is the chair or through any of the members, I think the members can basically request a special meeting through the chair, and you would actually just have a dedicated meeting to that topic. So you'd actually have a public forum or a meeting, and it would be limited, again, to that particular hot topic if there was one, so that you're not kind of tying up or monopolizing a regular board meeting with a topic.
Okay.
So that language is in the MASC policy. You guys would have to decide, do you do it based on what happens to be the hot topic at the time? Or do you set up kind of periodic, monthly, might be a bit much, but, monthly or quarterly, just kind of open forums? And then if you wanted to do more of an open discussion, open forum, what's really the best format? Would it be to kind of have the meeting here? Would it be kind of a road show? Would you do something at an elementary school, another meeting at a middle school, a meeting at the high school, a community center? Like, that's what I think you guys got to talk about and figure out, how you want to kind of get that feedback. That could be more free-flowing, and I think that could kind of fill the gap for allowing that public participation piece if the meetings stay more business-oriented.
There are two things, because he interrupted me.
What?
The first thing is there's no place on the agenda, and so I was thinking about this, for referrals to another agenda. So one of the things I'd like to see is, like, one of the last items that we have on our agenda is referrals to, upcoming meetings and things that we would
We
like to
had that in
discuss.
place at one time when Mike was here.
New
And-
items or.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
it fell off,
Yeah,
fell off
yeah,
the
right.
page.
Yeah, that was one thing.
And then the other thing is, the public input, so there's two things, and I'd be happy to do one of these as the secretary. We have people come up and speak, and I'd like to have some contact information in case we had follow-up questions.
Sure.
Maybe they could sign in if they wanted to and leave, a contact email, so that if we wanted to get back to them and say, hey, can you give me some more information about this, we would have that. And then the other is I feel like sometimes public input, people get left dangling. Okay, so there's not, and, they bring up a point, but then, like, what happens next? So if there's a question or a concern, where does it go? And I'd like to see an action item list, where we follow up on people's concerns, either at the next meeting or, so, and that there is some resolution
Right.
or answers to their questions, because I feel like, you come up, they say their piece, and then 2 weeks goes by, and either they come back or they have to check the minutes after they're approved to find out if we discussed it. And sometimes I think things fall through the cracks.
But if we do limit it to agenda items, then hopefully we'll be answering their questions
Right.
when we get to that in the agenda.
Yeah,
Versus
absolutely.
now they could ask
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
We can't really address it, and then you're right, sometimes we just, it
It
just
just
goes
goes
away, right.
someplace,
But, if we change to this new policy, then at least they know we're gonna try to answer their questions when we get to that in the meeting.
And I do think to our public, to Hannah's point, is that I do think that we do need to get some feedback from the committee. I would like to see this as a discussion item, from, with the public, in terms of what it is that they, ideas that they may have, or things that they, would find most helpful in terms of getting information to us.
So we say we'll have an open quarterly meeting, but if members of the public contact the school committee, so it's a back and forth.
Yes.
And they have a concern,
Yes.
then they can contact to have an additional meeting.
Right.
Maybe not within that quarter, maybe at a shorter time frame.
Right, and I think if we start in one direction and it isn't working, we shouldn't be afraid to change it.
Right.
I know did they used to do public forum before?
Yes, we used to plant ourselves at places around town, and
Yep.
no one showed.
Okay.
So, maybe we tried mornings, we tried afternoons, evenings, it just.
So it's something we could try and see if it works, and if not, then we.
And I think we can reach out to some of the, and I don't want to get too far off topic, but with regards to this public input, we have some really great groups in town, and I'm thinking of the Council of Schools, that, they can help us, with maybe co-sponsor these forums, to be able to, get people there and get that information out to their individual schools, so that way we might have better attendance.
So should we look a little bit further into maybe doing a quarterly?
I love it.
Type of meeting?
You know, that doesn't, as far as the policy goes, it's
Right.
not applicable.
Right, no, but that's, if we do go with that policy, we do need to have another
Yes.
avenue for people to come and express their opinions on things, so, all right, so let's tentatively, let's look at maybe doing something like that. I don't know if we want to wait till next school year, I mean, we're almost done with the school year, if we want to try to do something before the end of this school year, people's opinions.
Well, you know, we could wait
Yeah.
and then take this time between now and the end of this school year to get input from people. You know, if they want to come and talk about, you know, public input or what they feel would be most helpful to meeting their needs, this would be the time to do it.
Sounds good.
I mean, people who are watching the meetings are would be kind of following this. The MASC is going to be sending us the different sections of the policy manual to actually kind of vote to ratify. So I anticipate we'll probably get our first set for like a June ratification. I don't know that we'll get it for May, because it's coming up so quick. But we'll probably get that for June, and can then have another opportunity if people want to come up and speak publicly, because it'll be on the agenda. And then if not, I do have to say that I find May and June very difficult for just everyone with like year-end things.
Absolutely.
There's so many different awards nights and activities. It's probably going to be hard to get a community group kind of focused on an issue. The summer's tough too, but maybe if we actually kind of thought about, you know, the quarterly option and kind of laying out ahead of time some dates, you know, for like, you know, the fall, the winter, and the spring. Now, when we go to those, say, council school meetings and things like that, we could start talking about like what would be useful items.
Right.
Because I'd much rather do a little bit of legwork and kind of put together even like the shell of a framework to start the discussion, so that, you know, in the event that we go, obviously anyone can talk about anything.
Sure.
But we have a few topics that were kind of like preloaded with some information on. I think it just might help get the conversation going.
And people can email us if their
Right.
ideas or,
Right.
you know, if they can't.
Right, if
make it
anybody's
to a
watching tonight and has
Right,
ideas, by all
exactly.
means, or if you're talking, so. Okay, so I think that's a good start, you know, in terms of that. You know, again, we're gonna talk about the policy review in a second.
Right.
You know, we're not gonna be voting on anything tonight, but at least to kind of get the ball rolling in that direction.
Sure.
All right, speaking of,
Speaking of policies, so just to update the committee with where we are with regard to the policies. We did engage the services of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees last fall to do a policy review. There were two parts to this. So the first part was the piece that we actually contracted with them for, and the piece that's underway. And that was taking all of our existing policies, sharing them with MASC. MASC has all of their recommended policies, and they go through a very kind of labor-intensive process of melding them and seeing, you know, if there should be recommended changes or whatnot. Al and Barbara serve on the subcommittee for policies. We've had 2 subcommittee meetings so far, and basically the MASC group walks you through about 2 sections of policies at each meeting. So they bring, you know, we've done policy section A and B in one meeting, and then we just did C and D in another one. And they literally, you know, take your existing policy, what the MASC recommends, and they say, you know, I'd recommend this, I don't recommend this. We make the recommendations literally at the meeting, and then Mike Gilbert will go back and actually incorporate the changes we want, and eventually he'll give us the recommended vote to take. So that's all in process. That's all we've committed to at this point in time, and the process itself is going to take probably about a year or so to go through, because you do 2 sections every 6 to 8 weeks or so, and we still have quite a ways to go. So that is going to be ongoing. You will approve the policy sections as you go, so we won't wait till the very end to do that. Again, sometime probably in May, you'll get the first set to go on. The second piece, which Hannah kind of spoke about earlier, the online hosting, that was a decision that we decided to hold on. So we haven't made any decisions on that, and I wanted to be clear about that. There were 2 different components. There was the component for the policy review, and then there was a component for the hosting, and figuring out where you're going to put these policies online. So that one we decided we weren't going to tackle until the end of the process, about a year from now. So there has been no action on that. So at the time when we have to figure out how we want to host them and keep them updated on websites, we'll have to figure out, do we want to do it internally, and you know, what mechanism do we want to do that in? Do we want to contract with MASC? Do we want to contract with a third party? Again, we didn't put a lot of time into that because we wanted to get through the whole policy review first. They give us the policies in electronic format, and we can determine what to do with them at that time. And we didn't have to make a decision. MASC wasn't pushing that, so that's why we decided not to. So there has been no decision on that, and again, it's probably about a year off, but I just wanted to at least address Hannah's question from earlier, because that did come up. And again, we've been through 4 sections so far, foundations and basic commitments, board governance and operations, section B, and then at the last meeting on April 10th, we did section D, general school administration and financial management. Our next for the public, because they are posted, they are public meetings, if anyone wanted to come and watch them, our next policy subcommittee is Wednesday, May 9th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon here in this building, and we're going to do sections E and F. So that's a little bit about the background, and I'm not sure if anyone wants to.
No, I just want to thank Alan Barber, because I happen to sit on it like 1 hour of one of those, and it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's not, some of the the liaison assignments and subcommittees are fairly easy. This is very labor intensive.
I'm very glad that we've taken this on. I was opposed to it initially. I mean, I just didn't see the point, because ours was so customized to Chelmsford. And in many cases, we are continuing to use the Chelmsford policy. It was strong policy, and it remains. But there were several instances where our policy was just from another planet, and it didn't cover the material at all. So it was nice to see the MASC policy already there, and for him to say, you're way off base. So that's good. I think we're covering every aspect of this, and by the time it's done, we should be in a really strong place. I would really like somehow to make those policies searchable, not next year, but now. I feel like this is not fair to the public. We've been waiting now for 2 years. This is ridiculous. I don't even know how to express it. I don't understand why it was taken off, and I want it to go back on as soon as possible. And I know there are updates that will have to be made, but I can't imagine the cost of the software is going to be so astronomical that we can't do it now.
And I think it's a part of a larger conversation we have to have about the website in general.
Yeah.
And that is one of the items that is on that list that people sent in, and that we're going to try to get to in a couple of days. There's a lot of different things about the website that we need to improve, and that's definitely something we want to discuss, in the near future. So, and that would be part of it.
Yep.
So.
We're missing a lot of history.
I think one of the things that's been really helpful, and you can jump in, we were able to clean up a lot of stuff because he's so familiar with working with this. You already got it covered here, so you don't need to have it here. So we've been able to just take, duplicate language out and really kind of having that kind of background, because he does it so much.
Or
saved a lot.
Where the law covers it. We don't need to have it in
Right.
our policies. It's a law.
Yeah.
So, we've been able to take out some stuff that way.
It's not a policy, it should be somewhere
Yeah.
else,
Yeah.
in a handbook somewhere.
Yeah, you don't have to say,
Right.
you shouldn't hit someone with your car. If you hit someone with your car, you might be in trouble. There's a law that covers that.
I hope so. Okay, anything else in regards to the policy review? Personnel report?
Yeah, personnel report, just a report from the Human Resources Office that details the personnel transactions for the month of March. Again, just a list of the new hires to the district, resignations, retirements, just to a couple of assignment changes, just to keep you in the loop of comings and goings of staff in the schools, in case you see them in your travels. No action
Where are we in the hiring process, like the assistant superintendents and?
I'm already here.
Assistant principal, sorry. Not assistant superintendent, assistant principal.
That's a way to tell me.
Sorry, Linda.
We have to talk in the morning.
Okay, that's fine.
No, yeah, because I know actually Al had asked about
that's
this
right,
as well. So the Harrington principal, obviously, we had earlier today, so that one was hired. The two elementary assistant principals, the athletic director, those positions were all posted, and the positions just closed at the end of last week, right at the end of the vacation week. So we had a meeting today with admin teams. Oh, and the coordinator for English was another admin position. So all of those closed at the end of last week. So teams are going to start to form this week. I anticipate interviews beginning next week, probably take about 2 weeks or so, and probably by the middle of May, we'll actually have recommendations for those. So I don't have anything tonight to report because the interviews haven't begun yet, but we are in process, and the postings have closed. We have a good applicant pool for all of the positions, so which is very positive, and probably by middle of May, we'll be able to announce those positions, and I also will invite those individuals to come and be introduced at the school committee meeting so that you can put a name with a face, because you'll be seeing them working in the district.
I'd just like to comment about one thing. I'm personally really pleased to have seen the police and fire doing emergency training over vacation. I mean, it was in the media, but it wasn't made a big deal. But I think it's to be commended that that kind of preparation is being taken place.
No, just on that note, I mean, they've been incredible to work with, but the police, fire, emergency responders, I know Trinity and other ambulance companies were drilling at Parker Middle School for the better part of last week. I actually got to go observe a drill with Town Manager Cohen and Police Chief Spinney invited us over to actually see it in action, and it was quite a drill to see. So they're drilling for all kinds of scenarios. We actually just had a group of about 25 complete the Alice instructor training the week before April vacation. That was a 2-day training at the high school. That was pretty significant, and that'll be a new initiative we'll be reporting on over the next month or so, and that'll be rolling out next year. But there's a lot of work underway. I know I think it was last Thursday or Friday, as I was driving to work, I saw a lot of dogs out in front of McCarthy Middle School, and it was the regional canine teams were training at that particular facility. So I personally have always taken the tack that I would much rather have law enforcement and first responders actually doing their trainings in our facilities, as opposed to doing them off-site or more kind of classroom-based. I'd like people to be as familiar with our schools on the response end as they possibly can be. So, anytime we have the opportunity to have our local law enforcement and first responders train actually in our schools, we'll take them up on that. I like being a training site for regional drilling as well, because you never know when you are going to need assistance from other communities to come in, and the more familiar and acclimated they are with our schools, God forbid, in the chance that a response is necessary and you need mutual aid from another community, I'd much rather have them be familiar with our buildings and able to respond and help out. So I'll always email you when that happens, just so you don't, you kind of hear what's going on and But I thought the trainings went very well, and I was happy that they included us in them.
All right.
And we didn't actually have any, I put it on there because I had a feeling we'd have a conference or a field trip request come in, and we didn't. So you don't have any action this evening to take on that.
Any liaison reports?
We're on vacation.
On vacation, yeah. Okay. All right, so I believe at this point we're going to move to executive session. So if somebody wants to make a motion to adjourn to executive session for the reasons stated on the agenda and not return to regular session.
So moved that we go into executive session.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 That's it, 5-0.
Thank you.